The following interview is going to contain some forward-looking statements. For more information about Trifecta Gold, we encourage you to visit their website at trifectagold.com.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bill Stormont. I'm with Junior Mining Hub, and I'm here today with Richard Drechsler, the CEO of Trifecta Gold, and the VP of Exploration, Jack Morton. Trifecta trades on the TSXV under the ticker TG and on the OTCQB as TRRFF. Thanks very much for joining me today, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you, Junior Mining Hub.
Yeah, our pleasure to have you here today. I mean, this is a really interesting project, and I'm really keen to delve into some of the details here from a corporate and geologically technical perspective. Last March, you announced a corporate reorientation that really sees Trifecta focusing on the Tombstone Gold Belt in the Yukon via your Mount Hinton project. And I was really wondering if you could delve into how this came together, talk a bit about you optioning the project from Strategic Metals and the two-stage earn-in agreement. Maybe talk a bit about how that earn-in agreement works and Strategic Metals' role as a 10% shareholder. And really, I'd also be keen to understand how the baton was passed from Strategic to Trifecta, the past spending and how that influences your exploration strategy going forward here.
Okay, yeah, well, I guess this deal has a lot to do with why we created Trifecta in the first place. So a little bit of history was that Trifecta was formed as a spin-out from Strategic Metals. Strategic's a project generator. They want to stick to that model. So basically, when they've got targets that are advancing to the point that they need to be drilled with some serious programs, they are looking to bring in partners. And from time to time, there's projects that we as Strategic Metals doesn't see the deal that they're looking for, so we want to keep exposure to certain projects, and so we put them out into a one of our own companies, and that's sort of how we formed Trifecta. It was initially came out as a distribution to strategic shareholders, and so basically we're looking to follow that same model here. Did a restructuring after moving a couple other targets forward over the previous years. Basically, we were in the same boat as a lot of other juniors that didn't have a defined resource on their projects, where the market's been sort of languishing the last couple of years. So we decided, in order to relaunch Trifecta, we needed to find something with real tier one potential. And because I wear two hats, I got my VP hat at Strategic, so I'm very familiar with Mount Hinton. It's actually a project that Strategic was advancing in sort of the 2018, 2019 into 2020 years. And they came up with some really great results in that time, and actually did an initial drill program in 2020, just made some really nice discoveries, and then the project was optioned out right away to another group. Unfortunately, that was basically right into lockdowns, and the partner wasn't able to perform. So after a couple of years, they defaulted on the option, and the project came back to Strategic. And so in December of this past year, when gold prices started running, I went to Doug, who's the CEO of Strategic, and I'm wearing my Trifecta CEO hat, and I said to him, this project is incredible. I mean, we're in a belt that is probably one of the hottest belts in North America. There's been over 10 million ounces of gold recently defined right in the neighborhood of Mount Hinton over the last few years. And then more recently, a major discovery made by Snowline Gold that's a little further out in the belt. And so in order to get this project in play, both for Strategic and to relaunch Trifecta, we decided to come up with a deal that basically it'll work out for Strategic if it works out for Trifecta shareholders. So Strategic already being about an 8% shareholder of Trifecta, in order for us to enter this option deal, we'll bump them up to 9.9%. And then we've got to spend $6 million on exploration in order to get to 70%. And then at that point, we can make a decision based on the assets in the company. Do we want to issue another 10% share issuance to Strategic to get 100% in this property portfolio? And then we're just subject to a 2% NSR for Strategic. So there'll be significant shareholders, assuming that we go right through to the 70 and decide to take the full ownership at 100. Their share position will be somewhere between 10 and 20%. So not control, but still a good interest. And then they've got exposure to this flagship asset being advanced.
So thank you for that. That's a great segue, I think, into really, the idea of having to spend $6 million. You've kicked off now with a capital raise last week. You're raising $1.5 million. Can you talk a bit about how that is going to influence your 2024 field season? You've described a 2-phase exploration program for Mount Hinton and some of the other assets you have in the area. So, mapping, trenching, drilling, to really evaluate that reduced intrusion gold system that you're on top of here. So maybe walk us through some of the specific goals and expected outcomes from each phase, and just help us understand how 2024 is going to influence the overall development of the project.
So, as you mentioned, we announced financing last week. Just got out there telling the story, and we're just about full. I anticipate closing it right away next week. I mean, there's a fair amount of demand based on the assets that are going in here, and that's one of the things. Is Mount Hinton is not a greenfields project. It's a camp scale target that has seen a significant number of exploration campaigns over the years. But a lot of as we're digging through the history of it, a lot of them are sort of piecemeal, and so we're looking to go at this as our flagship asset and really unlock the Mount Hinton, because we've got a lot of data from previous operators that we're now able to compile it all together, and then put the bigger story together on this. And you brought up the reduced intrusion idea. I mean, I can let Jack get into a bit of that. He's our geologic talent in the background here, but one of the other things that we've done as part of restructuring this company is brought on some other talent. We've been able to attract Moira Smith, who she's another well-known geologist in this belt. She's got extensive experience at Pogo. She's a co-author on a number of the reduced intrusion papers with Craig Hart. They've written a number of papers about these type of deposits throughout the belt. So really having her expertise combined with our Tricathro team that's sort of in the background here with Trifecta, I think we've got a winning combination of a great project with wonderful access, and then a team that's found many high grade gold deposits before. So it's we're doing what we've done before.
Yeah, and just before we move on, I got to say, like, going through your deck, it's a really impressive deck. And the one thing I would say is that you go through so many, and they don't. You've got to squint to see what your targets are and how they're structured. And I think the way you've laid out the story in there is very well done. And this job's hard enough without having to squint. So I think that all of the geology, the targets, the previous intersections, it's an excellent deck, user friendly, which isn't always the case. But excuse me, you were talking about we're focusing on the Tombstone Gold Belt. It's obviously a popular neighborhood, and it's really, as you say, probably the premier gold district in North America right now, and the focus for a lot of good news. A lot of that obviously focused around Snowline. But when you talk about the neighborhood, you're close to Mount Hinton is close to Hecla's Keno Hill, Banyan's Ormac deposit. And how does that, being in that area, infrastructure, you've got a mill close by, how does that really influence the strategic value that you see there, and the geological potential of the project as you see that as well?
Yeah, so I guess, we're still a pre-resource project, but we look at this as fairly low risk. There's been over 60 veins already found on our ground at Mount Hinton, and we're in the direct extension of the same stratigraphy that they've been mining just to the north of us at Hecla's ground for over 100 years. So there's lots of big veins that have been identified, but they've just been very lightly tested. There's a number of them will have multiple surface assays and trench results and whatnot, but maybe one section line of drill holes across them. So in that sense, it's still fairly early. But as you can see from some of the photos, they're incredibly impressive and strong structures. And where we have intersected them in drilling, they're up to 12-meter wide veins with really good gold and silver grades. And I guess some of the history of this district is important because it was recognized as a promising vein camp by United Keno Hill Mines, 40, 50 years ago. And they were a previous owner of this project and actually drilled a couple of these veins But at the time, based on gold prices, they weren't even assaying for gold. So they've got some intersects across some of these big structures, 7 meters of a couple 100 grams silver with no assays for gold. And then we go back to those structures more recently, and we're able to find nice visible gold at surface in those structures. So, there's a huge amount of potential here to put together resources just based on these massive vein structures that we see. But one of the other things that really intrigued us was, following up on what Snowline's success further out in the belt, where it looks like they've put together a major tier 1 asset at the valley. It's basically it's a reduced intrusion type system. They were classically known as gold porphyry systems, and the difference or the significance of the Snowline discovery is it's 3 times the model grade for these type of deposits, and they're also marked by magnetic lows. And so the Mount Hinton, again, to the history section, there was historically only road access from the north. So basically just the northern part of this project received work. And as you see the bluer colors there, that's our magnetic low. And we've really just started to get crews into there over the past few years. So not even all of that mag is covered with geochem yet. Part of our plan this year is to extend that magnetic coverage to complete all the coverage for the southern portion of the project, where we are getting into that more intense mag low. And I mean, there you got some of the soils coming up that are the high grade golden soils, and I mean that large anomaly to the south there, it has only had a day or two of prospecting in it, right? And then as you can see, some of those mag lows, not a single soil sample yet. So a lot of that reduced intrusion type model, it fits here based on a lot of the metal zonation we see in the known veins. I mean, the veins we have are, quartz rich with a lot of gold and a bit of arseno. And then when you step out towards where Hecla's mining, you're much more galena rich with higher silvers. And so that fits the zonation model for that reduced intrusion type system. So that's one of the things that we're going to be investigating as part of this, part of our phase 1 program this summer. While at the same time, not forgetting that we're in a legendary vein camp, and we have huge vein structures that we've been able to discover over the last few years through a combination of LiDAR surveys and really good, just detailed on the ground prospecting, and then following up some of the historical showings as well.
I mean, you mentioned Moira and her association with Craig Hart and contributions working together in some of their papers, and I see you cite, that reduced intrusion model that Craig has popularized, and you see it obviously within the Snowline context. Maybe Jack's be a great place for you to jump in and just give us a bit more detail on that mag low and just how vital that is to the overall project in terms of what you're doing. I'd also be, when you look at how this property has been worked in the past, why this part of it was overlooked. I mean, there's obviously been a lot of soils done, as you can see on the screen here now, but I'm curious why that hasn't been hit yet, and just how much of a focus that becomes for you from here.
Yeah, obviously we're in the belt of intrusive rocks that are driving a lot of deposits, the Tintina Gold Belt that extends from Yukon Northwest Territories border, where the valley discovery is all the way to interior Alaska. And like Richard said, the deposits, they classically display a zonation of a gold-rich center and then distal silver and base metal-rich veins. And then they also have a characteristic geophysical expression. So the intrusion itself usually is non-magnetic, and then it develops a contact aureole around it with the metallic minerals that develop a kind of a classic donut geophysical expression. So a strong magnetic signature encircles the low intrusion. Fortunately, as you can see, we don't have the full magnetic coverage of the property right now, but we will be performing some more geophysical surveying this year to extend the coverage. And that geophysical surveying will have some answers about underlying geological structure and the potential for buried intrusions on the project. Toward into the Maglo in the eastern part of the project and where the number 1 vein is, there was some reports of historic drill intercepts. All we have is the drill logs, and there's not much else to go off of. But you can see that they did intersect granitic rocks, and they mentioned that they contain quartz veins as well, not assayed. So that's exactly what you would expect to see in a system like this. The maglo, the donut shape, granitic rocks in drill results, and the gold endowment, of course. In terms of why it was overlooked, it's because of access. United Keno Hill, like Richard said, had established access from the north in the 70s and the 80s, and they were focused on the silver potential of the area. And it wasn't until I think about 2017, 2018 that placer miners actually gave us the access into the southern part of what we call the Granite Creek Basin. And you can see from what's on screen now, every drainage on the property is basically a active placer operation right now. And so that gave us access into the southern part of the property. And it was around 2019 that we began to make discoveries of visible gold, high-grade gold. Prospectors were finding gold all over the place that we hadn't really recognized earlier. And that was the big push that got Strategic Metals really invested in drilling in 2020.
Can you just elaborate a bit on the placer side of things? Because the importance of that in the establishment or discovery of Fort Knox, for example, is obviously huge. I mean, for you, is that, like, what role does that play in your exploration strategy and targeting as you look at this?
Yeah, it's like I said, of course, it's access, right? Access with the drills, reducing the hurdle of developing that access in the future. It's already there, right? And we have good lines of communication with those guys. Yeah. We collaborate, and we're able to explore their cuts, potentially share costs on things as they come up, etc.
And the overall drill costs as a consequence of that access. I mean, that's obviously, people are looking at, investors want to see their money go in the ground, and my sense is that having that road access is a means of making sure that more of it does go into it, as opposed to more heli supported operations. What's the sort of outcome there for drill costs with access to your drill sites?
Yeah, like everything, like groceries these days, the price is going up, but it's significantly cheaper than any helicopter program in the Yukon. So it's probably about $500 a meter, or even cheaper if we can expand the program, because there's the economies of scale there. And that's probably about as cheap as you'll find now in the territory. Every drill site is road accessible. Every prospect is road accessible. And like I said, the development hurdle of just getting into the camp, it's done. We have really good access there into the camp.
Yeah. And I think that's the idea of having that infrastructure in place, as opposed to the headaches of permitting and having to do that kind of building. And again, I guess the proximity of the mill over at Keno Hill as well. All of those things. I know it's an early stage exploration project, but when you look forward, I suppose the reason I raise that is that most projects don't become a mine, and the economics are a big part of that. And where you've got this kind of opportunity already in place, I think that's a compelling setup for exploration and carrying things forward here. Maybe just to wrap up, two questions, just as we get into the 2024 field season, and you wrap up the financing. Can you give us a sense of, everyone knows it's a tough market, how the financing has gone, and when you do close it up, like, what are the key milestones and timelines that investors should be watching for as we move through the summer, in terms of news flow, in terms of updates? And then really the last question I would have is, what have I missed? What's the message you'd like to leave viewers with here as we wrap things up?
Okay, yeah. So this financing is basically a seed round, based after this consolidation, and there's never any seed stock issued on this company, so it's pretty much that's what this round is, and I think that's kind of why it went out the door so fast. And that puts the company in a good stead for working capital. But we do have $6 million in exploration expenditures to do, so we anticipate that we're going to be doing flow through financings as we move forward to finance our exploration. And I think one of the reasons we've been able to get traction is because we have this camp scale asset that's not a brand new target. There's already a lot of existing great results that we can build off of. And yeah, the location and valuation, and then again the team behind our company. I mean, we're responsible for the discovery of both the highest grade plus million ounce deposits ever in Yukon. And so we've done it before, and we're insiders are heavily invested in this. Strategic, who's a very well-known project generator in Yukon, spent a number of years assembling this land position, and they're going to benefit as a shareholder and a royalty holder as well. So just basically trying to align everyone's interests with the shareholders on this one, and then we'll be pushing it forward as aggressively as we can into this rising gold market.
So Jack, maybe just one last question for you. I think just as we wrap up here, I'd really be keen to know that as a geologist, what really fires you up about the coming exploration season? What targets are you most interested in developing? Is it the Maglo that we looked at earlier? Where do you really want to get to grips with this project in the summer of 2024?
Well, if you give me an opportunity to step back, maybe, because this program has a lot of different components, and there's all of the components that I'm actually quite excited about. So like we mentioned earlier, it's kind of two thrusts happening at the same time. There's a large geophysical survey there that'll help us identify the potential for buried intrusions and some of the geological structure. And then we have a field team, a really well qualified field team on the project for the summer, doing detailed geological work. And that's in coordination with the Yukon Geological Survey and Simon Fraser University. And I think it's important, right, that we have like over 60 targets, over 60 mineralized gold veins, as Richard said, that have been explored in piecemeal over the programs. And a lot of them have never been followed up. And we have a lot of soil geochemistry that we've collected over the years that also hasn't been followed up. And so those field crews, they're going to be evaluating these targets, evaluating soil geochemistry, and answering a lot of academic questions that have district scale implications for all the projects in the area. And then the second thrust, of course, is a modest drill program. It's designed for big step outs along some of the better established structures in the well mineralized veins. Like in the case of Southwest Zone there, in the 2020 program, the last holes of the seasons were finished off with strong drill intercepts of 6.5 grams per ton gold over 12 meters, including 43 grams per ton gold over 1.5 meters. And so we're kind of designing a program to step out along those structures to just prove that this project has large grade, large size potential. And of course, if we happen to identify additional targets in the reduced intrusion model, we can make a choice at the time to target something like that, and then the project could go from 0 to 60 in a hurry, right? The southwest zone vein there, it's situated like right above these large placer camps there. That they're some of the best producing placer gold camps in Yukon right now. So we think there's big potential on the project, and we're excited to have a lot of news flow this year.
You sound like you're spoiled for choice with targets. That's always a tough question too, because you're asked to choose your favorite child in a way, and you've got no shortage of places where you could put the drill and do
exactly.
So thank you all very much. Once again, if viewers are really keen to get into this themselves and go over what we've been looking at during the course of this conversation, please do come on to the Junior Mining Hub site. You can come onto the map yourself and really focus in on some of the historic works that you've seen at Mount Hinton and some of Trifecta's other targets around here, and understand too where they are in proximity to some of the other Tombstone Gold Belt players like Drechsler, like Snowline, like Banyan and Hecla. So and for those of you who want to learn more about the company directly, Rich, maybe you could just give us a quick highlight on how people can get in touch with you and Jack and stay in touch with the projects over the summer.
Yeah, sure. Well, I just invite prospective investors or people that are interested in Trifecta to visit our website, trifectagold.com. Sign up for our email list there. We're always available by email, info@trifectagold.com, or our phone number 604-687-2522. I'm always happy to chat with new and prospective investors, give them more details on what we've got planned for the company. And we didn't even have the chance to touch on some of the other projects that we have that are a little bit closer to Snowline's ground. So there are some other targets that we are going to be working on a bit this summer and developing drill targets. So yeah, I mean, well, there's a lot more in Trifecta than meets the eye right here. So looking forward to speaking with your audience.
Well, we've got lots of material for our next call, so I'm looking forward to that. Thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.